I never imagined that I would be the type of man to spy on his own wife. But something about her late nights, the cryptic texts, and the aloof expression in her eyes made me want the truth, even if it broke my heart. So I put cameras in our house without telling her, and days went by without anything out of the ordinary until one night I noticed it. The betrayal I feared unfolding right in front of me, and from that moment on nothing was ever the same. We met in college, one of those whirlwind romances that felt like it was written in the stars. She was smart, beautiful, with a laugh that could light up any room. I fell hard, and she fell just as fast, or at least I thought she did. We got married a few years later, built a life together, a home filled with memories, laughter, and promises of forever. At first, everything was perfect. We'd stay up late talking about our dreams, planning vacations, and picturing our future. She was my best friend, my confidant, the person I trusted more than anyone. But trust, that's the thing about it. It can be fragile even when you don't realize it's cracking. It started small, little things I brushed off as nothing. She became distant. Her phone was always glued to her hand, and she started working late more often. When I'd ask, she'd laugh it off, saying I was being paranoid. And maybe I was. Maybe love makes you blind to the things you don't want to see. But the doubt grew like a seed planted in the back of my mind. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to be that guy, the one who doesn't trust his own wife. But something felt wrong, the kind of wrong you can't explain, only feel. And that's when I did it. I bought the cameras. It felt wrong, sneaky, like I was the one betraying her. But my gut wouldn't let it go, so I set them up small, hidden in places she'd never notice. I told myself it was just to ease my mind, to prove that I was overthinking. But deep down I think I already knew the truth. I just wasn't ready to face it. For the first few days, nothing happened. I checked the footage late at night, when she was asleep, heart pounding in my chest for reasons I couldn't explain. She'd come home from work, make dinner, watch TV, just the same routine. It almost made me feel guilty, like I'd invaded her privacy for no reason. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I was the problem. But then it happened. It was a Thursday, I remember, because I was supposed to meet a friend for drinks. But something told me to stay home. She left the house, claiming she had to work late again. I waited until the house was empty, my heart racing. As I opened the live feed, the house was quiet, empty, just walls, furniture, shadows. I nearly turned it off until the front door opened and she entered, but she wasn't by herself. A man was following someone I had never seen before. She didn't seem anxious and laughed without hesitation, and the one I thought was for me was the only one. They moved through the house as if it were their own space, their secret world. It was like watching my life fall apart in real time, as every kiss, every whisper, every betrayal played out on that tiny screen. The woman I loved and trusted to build a life with was a stranger, and worse, she didn't even appear guilty. I watched frozen as they sat on the couch, their touches too familiar, too intimate. The kind of touch that used to be mine. I could breathe, my hands shaking, my chest tightening, but I couldn't take my eyes off it. Long after they had departed, I continued to watch the video again in hopes of uncovering some secret information that would alter what I had seen. But there was just the unmistakable, icy reality. The days after she came home, kissed me on the cheek, asked me about my day, and carried the weight of her betrayal like it was nothing. I played along, smiled, nodded, and pretended, because I wasn't ready to confront her yet. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't rage, and I didn't scream. Instead, I just sat there, drowning in silence, realizing that the life I thought I had never really existed. The thing about betrayal is that it not only breaks your heart, but it also destroys your sense of reality. I would watch her from the other side of the room, wondering how long she had been leading this double life, and if it was just this guy who was there, or if everything we had created had been nothing more than an illusion. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by a stranger who was wearing her face. At night, I would lay awake and stare at the ceiling as she breathed softly next to me, wondering how I had missed the warning signals. Was I blind and naive, or did I just have such a strong belief in us that I was unable to see the cracks? I became a ghost in my own house, going through the motions as if I were the husband she believed me to be while I was drowning inside. I would watch the video again, not to punish myself, but because I couldn't believe she was real. She would laugh at my jokes, plan future trips, and talk about kids as if she wasn't already destroying our family. It was a quiet evening like any other, and she was in the kitchen humming softly, making dinner, acting like nothing was normal anymore. For me, the mask I'd been wearing for weeks was heavy and suffocating, and that night I decided to take it off. I walked into the room calm, too calm. My heart wasn't racing anymore. The anger, the heartbreak, the confusion, it was all gone, replaced by something colder. The duality of it all was suffocating. I wasn't living anymore. I was just surviving, and then came the breaking point. I came home early one day, and she was on the phone, her voice soft like it used to be with me. Clarity, she grinned as she glanced up, and her eyes had the same warmth that had made me fall in love years before, but it didn't reach me. We didn't need to speak anymore, I said in a steady, emotionless voice, and her smile turned to a flicker of worry. I didn't hesitate, and I knew she froze, trying to play dumb, her voice shaking just a little. I took out my phone, opened the video, and hit play. Her face was colorless as she watched herself destroy the life we created together. She didn't say anything for a while, just stared with her mouth slightly open as if she couldn't process what was happening, and then the excuses began. "It's not what it looks like," she whispered, her voice trembling. She broke down and fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. She grabbed my hand and said, "I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Please, let's fix this. I love you." But her words were meaningless, just like the promises she had made while concealing lies behind her smile. I laughed, a cold, hollow sound. Not with love or hate, but with apathy. I looked down at her and said, "You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught." She sobbed more, but I was already gone, mentally and emotionally. The man she married and the man she betrayed didn't exist anymore. I carefully withdrew my hand and stood up, saying the last words she would ever hear from me. As I said my goodbyes to her, her cries reverberated throughout the empty room. I experienced the stillness that, for the first time in a long time, seemed like calm instead of the suffering I had anticipated. No heartache, no rage. That evening, I packed my belongings with simply a bag of necessities and the weight of lessons. No grand goodbye or drawn-out speech. When someone betrays you, it's not just the relationship that ends. It's the version of yourself that believed in them, trusted them, and loved them without question. I moved into a small apartment and started over. It wasn't easy some nights, and the memories crept in uninvited, but with each day the pain subsided and was replaced by something stronger. I learned that she followed me to the door while still pleading and crying, and her words of blur in the background, but I didn't turn around once. Clarity, she tried reaching out, texts, calls, emails. I never responded, not because I was bitter, but because there was nothing left to say. Forgiveness isn't about them, it's about you, and I forgave her, not to mend what was broken, but to set myself free. She lost me the moment she decided I wasn't enough, and I found myself the moment I realized I was always more than enough. As I closed that door behind me for the last time, I realized something powerful. Sometimes the closure you're searching for doesn't come from an apology or even an explanation. It comes from walking away and never looking back. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry it didn't work out the way she planned. If she had never been caught, she would have kept lying, kept pretending, And that's the truth people don't like to admit. So if you're holding on to someone who betrayed you hoping they'll come back and make it right, don't. They're not coming back because they miss you. They're coming back because they miss the comfort you gave them. And sometimes the most powerful thing you'll ever say isn't "I forgive you," it's "I'm done."